witches. 8. You moved to the coast and learned that Honeyface was coming on the wrong day, so you went home to bed and lots of names drifted through your head. The Queen Bee, the Old Whisperer, Johnny Moved His Body Beagle, Jimmy the Stamen, all unknown trophies of the early papers. You made coffee and read Honeyface. Her life so dark. She taught you how a coffee enema could produce a mental stillness. Rather than putting water in the enema, you filled the bucket with warm coffee. Initially intimidating, you found the enema to be easy, breezy, beautiful, and good for the soft charm around your eyes. You used cooking oil on your bum and on the plastic tube. As an option, you used decaf. 5. And then you studied the American trade magazines. The stricken mid-century perfection of Evergreen, for example, which was covered with tongues and dirty fingers, pretty fingers shot with switches and excerpts, ingenious and ordinary and tired. You wished you were reeling around there, or you didn't really believe in your wishes. So you moved to France, where you learned about a long-distant past, where nothing subsists, and that after people died, 5, after things were broken and scattered, they returned with more vitality. There, the smell and taste of things remained poised for a long time, like souls ready to remind you, waiting and hoping for their moment, in the tiny and almost impalpable drop of their essence, the vast structure of recollection. But you weren't yet ready for that. So you traveled east, to the suburbs of Kyoto, where you studied the brevity of haiku. 5. Hoping to learn about the proverbial here and now. Instead, you learned about nothing, as if nothing were an object to be held, but not held like the sound of snow falling on branches is held, or the sound of a distant temple bell is held, or a crow in the forest. That branch was just a branch. It wasn't a distant temple bell, or a crow, or the snow-laden roof of a hut. It wasn't even Basho's hut, or just a hut, any hut. The hut of Mukai Kaiorai, for example, Basho's friend. 2. Basho was here, you thought, as you learned about the space of nothing in crows, in chattering birds, in a gong next door, a single gravestone, other gravestones, a casket. 1. All of this you recognized as one, a single, spatialized nothing, and then you forgot. 1. So you organized a formula for your failing memories. 4. If you then absorbed the image that you had formed of those memories, it was only by transferring that image, by subordinating its reappearance to your own special laws, and in consequence of this, you made your studies more beautiful, but at the same time, more different from anything that research could in reality be. 6. And by increasing the arbitrary delights of your imagination, you aggravated the disenchantment that was in store for you when you set out upon your studies, which did not then represent research as a picture more or less attractive, cut out here and there of a substance that was common to it, but looked instead on everything as on an unknown thing, different from all the rest, a thing for which your soul was athirst, by the knowledge of which it would benefit. 3. During the period in which you went laboriously over your studies, as over a tune or a sum, though never to your own satisfaction, you never ceased to believe that the formulas founded on your research corresponded to a reality independent of yourself. 5. And you felt happy indeed. At that time, you paid more attention to what was in your mind when you pronounced the word research, which you thought to be unreal, unfixed, and which differentiated this period in your life from those which had gone before it, and might easily have been confused with it by an observer who saw things only from without, that is to say, who saw nothing. 7. How much more individual still was the character that your research assumed from being designated by numbers, numbers that pointed only to themselves, along with proper names such as trees' hags, names and numbers chosen as typical of everything else of the same sort, like some feudal right of the former condition of some object, of an obsolete way of pronouncing the language, which had shaped and wetted its incongruous syllables, and which you never doubted. To become acquainted with those names and numbers which you had so often clambered onto in imagination, you should have stopped. 0. 3. Alighting from them at the most beautiful of their losses. Instead, you went on learning, but on a more simple level. For example, you studied the importance of your body for oceans. You studied your own movements in space by taking a deep inhalation, 9. And with a jump, you spread your legs apart sideways, 4 to 4½ feet, holding this pose from 20 to 30 seconds with deep and even breathing while bending your right knee till your right thigh was parallel to the floor, and you tightened your legs by drawing up your kneecaps, exhaling, then bending your trunk forward and resting your chest on your right thigh while your arms hung from your neck like a garland as you exhaled again, released your inner ears while moving your leg down sideways to the floor until your legs and hands were stretched in opposite directions, and you inhaled, raising your head up, raising your hips up too from the floor with an exhalation and resting your hands on them by bending your arms at the elbows. 2. Then you repeated the sequence with the root of your tongue soft. You did this for years with some effect, although your research remained incomplete. 9. It was at this point in your studies that you began to attract students. Your questions for them? 1. True or false? Between the known and the unknown lies the area of chief interest. 2. Are there any people here who would like to transform this seminar into a wild loving? When you read this question to the class, you took off your shirt. 3. If there is a question, what is that question? 4. If there is nothing to say, nothing to understand, nothing to know, nothing to do, why are so many people here? And why do you stay? 5. However, your students remained silent and so disappointed, you told them that lowliness befits us all because it unites us with a kind of zero. Who was to say that you were mistaken in your voluntary poverty? You had to face the fact that your research was apparently worthless, and that it even achieved no result at all, if not perhaps results opposite to what you had expected. 6. And so you moved on through your vowels, and you learned how the foot and bone goes on loving and hollow, how the torso goes on loving and hollow, going on towards the whole, going solo but with hope, on the crown of the zero or flung on the floor, on the slowest coffin, on the ropes, the longer pools of boulders thrown and roiling roots hollowed out, boiled through your constant learning, your humming through the fontanelle and roaring through the poplar, through the woods, for nobody. 1. You were not overcome. You weren't, and it was possible to compose your hymn to what occurred. 9. To come forward with no exposure to bone or thorn, to lose all flavor without tongue, but all to join in song together. You savored the afternoon clouds, hollow as a hole without color, without the coffin's body knowledge or the open plot of soil. Towards your hymn the coffin moved. You learned about nature, or what we call nature, how condors soared over mountains of soil, over the bloom of thorns, the hollow thorns of your song, of your soul and of your broken promise to the yellow clouds. You heard the village murmur muffled under oleander. You studied how to form a coffin promise in the fog, the coffin knot of rhododendrons, grown for naught on a slope, not for the cumulus hope of the flowers, other blossoms. 7. Returning home, you saw your spouse, so strong with leaf green eyes. She smiled at you and cleared right through your aching noise. She was tall and taut with leaf green thoughts, and like a vine beside a summer wall she twined. She taught you about the underworld, about a stone tube connecting your burial chamber with the bridal branches waving above. The branches were gentle. They were not sure of themselves. They saturated themselves, pretended to adorn themselves, and they tried to speak about themselves like one struggling against the frivolity in their own nature. In this lay their greatness. 9+. You entered the space of your family as a corpse and studied the words of your children for signs of that space, that love. Actually, I don't want to read a book, I want some toast. Or clap because I sing the loveliest song. Or you're going to have to get used to being killed. Or now I can't make my species, my onion picket man. I did make one for you with sellotape and paper. Or I did do floating. Or they put nails in him and then he died. Can you get me one? Or one of the baddies got dead and one got never to be seen again. Or is that really a good secret door? Look, this is the real secret door. Or when people feel ill, you sing that daddy song that makes them feel better. Or no one in the world can count to infinity. Or I'm making a pile of mazes, loads of them. Shall I show you how to make really good mazes? Each person has to make a maze. Or I hate you because you're always away. 5. Without those phrases, you wondered if your heartbeat was only alone, the sign of a secret pact with something truly ignorant. You were the sound of traffic, and then you were that driver even though you were dead. Do not forget this, and do not be downcast, for the time will soon come for your earth, death, and sand, when everything cold and full of value, a step closer to the silent magic of humanized numbers, surrounded by frost and snow and flames. 2. Then you will forget how to lean towards love with your whole surface, and how to lay turned away with your whole inside. 5. You will forget about people who never flew, and yet there they were among the clouds. They remained in flight, dirt-fisted, immolated, imperious to mirrors, living in quasi-isolation like indistinct sticks involved with cliffs, infinite mists with written sights for liveries kitted into identical skirts, incarnations of celestial pavilions, sitting on billions and billions of bicycle tires on fire. 3. Others might study grieving trees, but you will abstain from studying grieving trees. You will abstain from what ifs it, what ifs this, whenever this will be, it will be this, and even items will be items. These kinds of things will never aid your studies.
I think we have, 20 minutes?
Some procedural and conceptual methods that are used in visual arts discourse and in recent poetries. There's a lot of crossover. And so I don't want to separate those two forms, two approaches completely, but then there are certain things that are definitely not conceived of as poems and are more like objects with text.
I'll go on for Robert. But that first prose piece, was that a standalone piece, did you say? Or is that part of a
It's
longer...
part of a longer short story, which has been accepted somewhere for publication already, but it's not finished yet.
Where's it going to be then?
I think maybe one of the future issues of the Cambridge Literary Review.
Any other questions?
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
That avant-garde tower, I think that's just so ridiculous, really. It's right across the street from the Richmond Center, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it was quite difficult. I wasn't sure whether it was too kind of easy of a target almost. But,
So my question was, did you go and, how did you know there were these 6 people named, or is that just totally part of the fiction? And
no,
you
that's
actually-
fiction.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fiction.
Right.
That is fiction, but the way the analysis of where people are located in terms of percentage world earners, that is based on a website called Global Rich List, which if you put in how much you're earning, it will tell you what percentage you are. But some of them I may have fictionalized as well. Definitely the 7.43%. If you earn £12,000 a year in London, you're in the top 7.43% of world earnings. That is definitely true, according to this website. But I'm not sure what they're basing their numbers on or what year in terms of economic prosperity, right? But the website for me is a useful tool to get a wider